Good afternoon, student. Today we will continue with the chapter Electoral Politics and we're going to start from the reserved constituency. Previously, in our two videos, we have learned about what is the importance of elections, why it is very important in a democracy to hold election from time to time, after every 5 years or after a stipulated time period. Then we have learned about how the country like India, which is having so much of population, how it is divided into various constituencies. As many as 543 constituencies are there. So now we will read about the reserved constituency. Our country have given a constitutional provision to have the reserved constituencies. So our constitution entitles every citizen to elect his or her representative and to be elected as a representative. The constitution makers, however, were worried that in an open electoral competition, certain weaker section may not stand a good chance to get elected to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. So they may not have the required resources, maybe education, contact to contest and win election against others. So those who are influential and resourceful may prevent them from winning the elections. So if that happens, our parliament and assemblies would be deprived of the voice of a significant section of our population, who are weaker section of our population. That would make our democracy less representatives and less democratic, because all the population will not get the chance in that case. So the makers of our constitution thought of a special system of reserved constituency for the weaker section. Some constituencies are reserved for people who belong to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. In a scheduled caste reserved constituency, only someone who belongs to the scheduled caste can stand for election. Similarly, only those belonging to the scheduled tribe can contest an election from a constituency reserved for the scheduled tribes only. So currently in the Lok Sabha, there are 84 seats that are reserved for the scheduled caste and 47 for the scheduled tribe. This number is in proportion to their share in the total population. Thus, the reserved seat for SCs and ST do not take away the legitimate share of any other social groups. So this system of reservation was extended later to other weaker sections of the society at the district and the local level too. In many states, seats in rural, especially in the panchayat elections, and urban such as municipal and corporation election also, local bodies election are now reserved for other backward classes too. So however, the proportion of seats reserved varies from state to states. Similarly, 1/3 of the seats are reserved in rural and urban local bodies for the women candidates also. So that is called the reserved constituency. So any constituencies which are kept as reserved for the minority people, who are the scheduled castes, who are the scheduled tribe, who are the deprived section of the people, even for the women, then we called it as a reserved constituencies. Now what is the voter list? So once the constituencies are decided, the next step is to decide who can and who cannot vote. So this decision cannot be left to anyone till the last day. In a democratic election, the list of those who are eligible to vote is prepared much before the election and given to everyone. This list is officially called the electoral roll and is commonly known as the voter list. This is an important step, for it is linked to the first condition of a democratic election. That means to prepare the voter list. Everyone should get an equal opportunity to choose representatives. Earlier we read about the principle of universal adult franchise in the previous chapter. In practice, it means that everyone, universal means everyone, should have one vote and each vote should have equal value. So no one should be denied the right to vote without a good reason. So different citizens differ from one another in many ways. Maybe some are rich, some are poor, some are highly educated, some are not, some are kind, others may be non-kind, but all of them are human beings with their own needs and views. That is why all of them deserve to have an equal say in decisions that affect them. So, in our country, all the citizens who have aged 18 years and above can vote in an election. That means the notion of universal adult franchise. Universal means everyone. Adult means who has attained the age of 18 years. So, every citizen has a right to vote regardless of his or her caste, religion, or gender. Some criminals and person with unsound mind can also be denied the right to vote, but only in rare situation in that case. So it is the responsibility of the government to get the names of all the eligible voters put on the voter list. As new person attaining voting age names are added to the voter list, names of those who move out of a place or those who are dead are deleted. A complete revision of the list takes place every 5 years. This is done to ensure that it remains up to date. So in the last few years, our new system of election photo identity card has been introduced. The government has tried to give this card to every person on the voter list. The voters are required to carry this card when they go out to vote, so that no one can vote for someone else. But the card is not yet compulsory for voting. For voting, the voters can show many other proofs of identity like the ration card or the driving license may also. Now the nomination of candidate. How the nomination of candidate being done? We know that in a democratic election, people should have a real choice. This happens only when there are almost no restriction on anyone to contest an election. That is why what our system provides, anyone who can be a voter can also become a candidate in election. The only difference that in order to be a candidate, the minimum age is 25 years, while it is only 18 years for being a voter. So there are some other restrictions on the criminals, etc., but this applied in very extreme cases. Political parties nominate their candidates who get the party symbol and support. Party's nomination is often called a party ticket. So what is a party ticket? It is the party nomination. So every person who wishes to contest an election has to fill a nomination form and give some money as security deposits. So recently a new system of declaration has been introduced on direction from the Supreme Court. Every candidate has to make a legal declaration giving full details of serious criminal cases pending against the candidate or not, details of the assets and liabilities of the candidate, his or her family, etc. Educational qualification of the candidate have to be filed. So these information have to be made public. This provides an opportunity to the voters to make the decision on the basis of the information provided by the candidate, so that they can judge everything about the representatives who will be elected. Now about the election campaign. This is very, very important before the election, which the political party actually do. The main purpose of election is to give people a chance to choose the representative. The government and the policies they prefer also. Therefore, it is necessary to have a free and open discussions about who is a better representative, which party will make a better government, or what is a good policy. This is what happens during election campaigns. In our country, such campaigns takes place for a 2-week period between the announcement of the final list of candidates and the date of polling. During this period, the candidate contests their voters. Political leaders address election meetings. Political parties mobilize their supporters. This is also the time when newspaper and television news are full of election related stories and debates. But election campaign is not limited to these 2 weeks only. Political parties start preparing for election months before they actually take place. So, in election campaigns, political parties try to focus public attention on some big issues. They actually do promises to the people. They want to attract the public to that issue and get them to vote for their party on that basis. So let us look at some of the successful slogan that has been given by the various political parties before the election. The Congress party led by Indira Gandhi gave the slogan of Garibi Hatao or remove poverty in the Lok Sabha election of 1971. The party promised to reorient all the policies of the government to remove poverty from the country. Next slogan is Save Democracy, given by Janata Party under the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayan in the Lok Sabha election held in 1977. The party promised to undo the excess committed during the emergency and restore civil liberties. So, here the party tells about the emergency that has been taken place during the Indira Gandhi's rule. Next is the left front used the slogan of land to the tiller in the West Bengal Assembly election held in 1977. Protect the self-respect of the Telugus was the slogan used by N.T. Ramarao, the leader of the Telugu Desam Party in Andhra Pradesh Assembly election in 1983. So in a democracy, it is best to leave political parties and candidates free to conduct their election campaigns the way they want to. But it is sometimes necessary to regulate campaigns to ensure that every political party and candidate gets a fair and equal chance to compete. According to our election laws, no party or candidate can bribe or threaten voters, appeal to them in the name of caste or religion, use government resources for election campaigns, spend more than rupees 25 lakh in a constituency for a Lok Sabha election or 10 lakh in a constituency in an assembly election. If they do so, their election can be rejected by the court even after they have been declared elected. In addition to the laws, all the political parties in our country have agreed to a model code of conduct for election campaigns. According to these, no party or candidate can use any place of worship for election propaganda. For election propaganda, the party cannot use any public places of worship, use government vehicles, aircrafts and officials for elections. Third, once elections are announced, ministers shall not lay foundation stones of any projects, take any big policy decisions or make any promises of providing public facilities. So these are the bylaws or the code of conduct that every candidate have to follow. So we are done with today's online video class. So in the next class we'll going to start with the polling and the counting of